Many times we get a lot of opportunities, and if we do not take benefit of those opportunities, then we only have to regret. And remember, in life, uh, the do and undo button is only in Microsoft Office. It's not anywhere else. It's definitely not there in life. So this valuation, friends, I think is a great opportunity for every one of us. And that's why when Reggie spoke to me suggesting that I should do a webinar for all of you, I immediately thought of this topic of valuation is not about numbers, it is all about a story. And why did this question came to my mind? This question came to my mind because uh, we have seen a lot of things happening in recent past, not only in India or Asia, but all over the globe. What we have seen is there are companies who are making losses, and yet they are getting very huge and attractive valuations. At the same time, there are companies which are coming out with public issues, IPOs, and they are coming out at a very high price. And soon after the listing, the issue price, the listing price, is tanking something like 30-40% in a day. So therefore, this question as to what is valuation, why is that it happens that companies which are making losses are getting so huge valuations. Not only they are getting so huge valuations, but they're also getting huge funding. So what is that which helps them to get so huge valuations and so good funding? And I thought to share this understanding with every one of you. In the process, also understand as to what valuation is all about. So the plan, friends, that we have for this session today, we start with demystifying the valuation conundrum. So what is valuation? We talk about why valuation, how valuation, what do we try and find out in valuation, and that is what we would understand. Then we would look at what are the methods and approaches for doing the valuation. So there are different kinds of assets. So you got land and building, you got a plant and machinery, you got a financial assets. In financial assets, you got derivatives, you got tangible assets, you got intangible assets. So how do you do the valuation? What are the approaches and methods for doing valuation of those assets? And that is what we would cover. Then the $1 million question as to why certain companies, even though they are making losses, how is that they still get so attractive valuations? We'll understand as to what is the reason behind that. And let me tell you, friends, at this point in time, the reason as to why these companies, despite making losses, still getting so huge valuations. Now, this reason is very, very important, not only for us to understand the reason as to why the valuations are so high, but also because the same principle we can also apply in the life of every one of us. And remember, when we apply the same principle in life of every one of us, we will also start getting similar kind of values. I'm sure that will definitely happen. So we will understand as to what are the stories behind these high valuation companies. Then the question which I'm sure must be coming in the minds of every one of you as to will these companies who are getting so huge valuations despite the fact that they are incurring losses, will they be able to sustain? And if they will be able to sustain, then how will they be able to sustain? That is what we will understand. And then we will understand also, I'm sure all of you must be investing in the share market, and being the finance professional, it is bound to happen. Even if you are not investing in the share market, I'm sure you will definitely be keeping a track as to what is happening on the stock markets. And you would have noticed a hugely strong company, LIC, Life Insurance Corporation, comes out with a public issue with so much of hype. The whole world was talking about of the LIC issue as to what kind of wonders it is going to make on the bourses, on the stock markets. And what we saw that such a strong company, LIC, and the issue after listing got tanked almost by 20% or over 20% now. We also heard about the story of Zomato. 2,150 was the issue price, and on the very first day, it tanked by 30%, and on next day tanked by another 15%. So all put together today, as it stands, the issue the price of Zomato is almost one third of the IPO price. So the question that we also need to understand as to why does it happen that companies come out with IPOs. These IPOs make news all over the world, and when the gullible investor, a retail investor, make investment in these issues, and when the issue prices tank so badly, and they of course lose their savings. But why does it happen? And more importantly, can that be stopped? Is it possible through some mechanism that such kind of incidences, Reliance Power or Zomato or LIC or PayTM or many of such companies, can that really be controlled? Can really that stop? So this is what the plan we have, friends, for the whole session today. And in the end, of course, we will have a question and answer session. In case if at any point in time, if you feel there's something that you should know, you can of course interrupt me and ask me your doubt, your question, and I would be very happy to take them. The only challenge is I'm able to see only my screen. So even if someone of you raise your hand, I would not be able to see it. But then of course, you can unmute yourself, ask your question, and I would be very happy to answer that. Let us now begin. Valuation conundrum demystified. तो कुछ सवाल है. I hope Reggie and Mazid and Tamil, sometimes I tend to move to Hindi. I hope that should be okay with every one of you. Will there be...
It's fine, sir.
Yep.
That's
perfectly
fine.
Okay, good.
That's perfectly fine, sir. You can go ahead.
It's fine, sir.
Good. Thank you.
We can be comfortable with
Thank you.
your language.
Thank you. Good.
No problem, sir.
Very good.
Regarding the questions of last, actually, when your session will end up, actually, we'll start it from my side, and Tamil sir also will be coordinating the people.
Perfect.
So it will be easier for you to...
Sure.
Pramod?
add up.
Sure.
Pramod?
Yes, please.
Only thing is that, a large number of South Indians are here. Our understanding of Hindi is okay, but we may misunderstand you, our language skills are not that clear.
No. And I will take care because sometimes, so just to ensure that it should not happen that any one of you is not able to understand me. So I'll take care.
If I can't understand what you are saying in Hindi, I will definitely ask you to.
Sure, Radhakrishnan ji. Sure.
Thank you.
All right,
During the question and answer session, you can ask the question.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So let us demystify the valuation conundrum. What is value? And friends, it's going to be my endeavor throughout this session to put the things in the simplest manner possible so that we are able to comprehend it very easily. What is value? Value is nothing but utility of an object. Value is nothing but utility of an object. That object can be an asset, that object can be a liability, and that is value. So only when something has a utility, it has a value. If that something has got no utility, it does not have a value. So first thing that we need to understand, what is value? Value is nothing but utility of an asset. What is valuation? And again, very simple. Valuation is quantifying utility of an asset in money terms is valuation. Quantifying utility of an asset in monetary terms is valuation. Why valuation? An answer, of course, is very simple. Valuation is because all of us are in the corporate. Being in the corporate, we are responsible for taking decisions. And if we have to take a decision, we need to have some parameter, we need to have some basis, we need to have some reference point so as to be able to take a decision. And the decision may relate to anything in the world of the business. It can be decision for merger, amalgamation, acquisition, buyback, issuing fresh capital, transfer, so many things. So why do we do valuation? We do valuation because we need a reference point. We need a reference point for taking a decision. So we do valuation because we have to take a decision. And I'm sure, friends, you can very easily visualize it. You can very easily understand it. Will you be able to take a decision in any situation unless and until in your mind, either in your mind or on a piece of paper, you have been able to quantify the value of that particular decision that you are taking? Answer, of course, is no. So any decision that you may have taken in the past, any decision that you would take in future, any decision that you are taking in the present, remember, will always be linked with a value. And therefore, we do the valuation for the purpose of taking decisions. Just give, right. So what that is your valuation. What is value? Utility of an asset. What is valuation? Converting utility of an asset in monetary terms is valuation. And why valuation? Because we have to take a decision. So in the corporate world, we have to take so many decisions, and for taking those decisions, we need a reference point. So by doing the valuation, we find out that reference point that will help us to take a decision whether to go for a particular outcome or not to go for a particular outcome. What we find through the valuation, and friends, this is what we need to understand. So what we try and find out through the valuation is very simple. We try and find out through the process of valuation the fair value. The fair value. And what is the meaning of fair value? Very simple. The meaning of fair value is a value which is fair to all the parties involved in a transaction. Fair value is a value which is fair to all the parties involved in a transaction. And remember, friends, this is in the bottom of valuation. This is in the bottom of valuation. As a valuation professional, it is our role and responsibility to find out a fair value. So if I'm doing valuation for someone who is interested in buying a company, buying somebody else's company, I should be able to give him a value which is fair value of that company which he is trying to buy. Why? Because only if I give him a fair value, the seller of that company will also find the value which I have given interesting for the transaction to happen. And that is what we have to also remember, that through the process of valuation, what we are doing, we are trying to find out the fair value. As a valuation professional, it is our responsibility, it is our obligation, it is our duty to ensure that we give a fair value. As a valuation professional, I should do the valuation. I should not be driven by my client. My client should not tell me, give me this value, and then I do reverse working and try and get that value. I can calculate that number, remember, but that is not going to be a fair value. Why it is not going to be fair value? Because it is not driven by the fact and the circumstances of that particular asset. So that's your question number 4, and that is what we try and find out through the valuation. We try to find out the fair value. Now, what is fair value? I have explained to you what is fair value. Fair value is something which is fair to all the parties involved in a transaction. And remember, only when a value that we have found out is fair to all the parties concerned, then only there is a possibility of transaction happening. If the value that I give is not fair, there is a full possibility that the other party will not show the interest in doing the transaction, because they would feel that for them the value that I have given is unfair. And obviously nobody would like to do a transaction when he is getting an impression or feeling that the value is not fair to him. Now the $1 million question, how to do the valuation? How to do the valuation? And this is what we will understand, and it's going to be my endeavor in next few minutes to discuss with you and explain as to which are the methods and the approaches for the purpose of finding the value in any situation. In any situation, whether we are doing valuation of a company, whether we are doing valuation of equity share, whether we are doing valuation of a business, whether we are doing valuation of intangible assets, doesn't really matter. The methods and the approaches would always remain the same. The approaches would remain the same, methods might undergo a change. So all these 6 questions, friends, that I have discussed with you, they would be equally applicable to all kinds of assets. They would be applicable to plant and machinery related assets. They would also be applicable to assets relating to building and plant and machinery, and they would of course be related with the securities or the financial assets as well. Now let's understand as to how to do the valuation. Now friends, if we have to do valuation of any asset, there are only three approaches all over the world and there is no difference. So the approaches of valuation in India, in Asia, in Europe, in America and everywhere else are three. And those three approaches are: number one, income approach; number two, market approach; and number three, asset approach. And no rocket science. Why an income approach is called as an income approach, and that is because under the income approach, methods that we use for the purpose of finding the value are based on income. So income is the basis on which we find out value of a company or an asset or a liability or any other object for that matter. And that is why it is known as income approach. Then we have market approach. So what is, again, no rocket science, it's called as a market approach. And why it is called as a market approach? It is called as a market approach because under the market approach, the basis for arriving at the value is the market related information. So we are trying to find value of an asset based on the information, based on the market information relating to that asset, and that is why it is called as market approach. And finally what we have is cost approach or the asset approach. You may call it cost approach or you may call it asset approach, both mean the same thing. It is called as an asset approach, and that is because under this approach the valuation is done based on the cost of the assets that you are trying to value, and that is why it is known as cost approach or the asset approach. So these are the three approaches for the purpose of valuation. And friends, please remember, it doesn't really matter whether you're doing valuation of a company or whether you are doing valuation of an intangible asset. All these three approaches will remain the same. So even if you want to do the valuation of a brand or goodwill or a patent or design or any other intellectual property right, these three approaches will still be the same: income approach, market approach and the asset approach. Income approach, the basis is income; market approach, basis is the market information; and asset approach, basis is the value of the asset that we are trying to value. Now under these three different approaches, there are different methods. So under the income approach, the methods that we use for the purpose of valuation are: the first one is income capitalization method. Very simple. Now what does it mean? It simply means under the income capitalization method, when you are trying to value, or if you are trying to value a company which has been in existence for considerably long period, it has got a consistent record of financial performance, and therefore the ideal approach for valuing such a company would be to use the income capitalization method. And how would you use the income capitalization method? Of course, very simple. So what you need to do, you need to see the income of last 4, 5, 6 years that you think is the normal period. Normalize that income. And when I say normalize that income, what would it mean? It would simply mean remove the exceptional items of income and the exceptional item of expenses from the income of 5, 6, 7 years. Take the average, and this average income that you have arrived at, capitalize it by your cost of capital. Your cost of capital or your expected rate of return, you capitalize it, and that is how you will come to the value of a company based on the income capitalization method. Just to give you a very simple example, if you are trying to do valuation of a company which has been in existence for last 20 years making profit, so what you do, you take the average profit of last 5 years, which is coming to, let's say, 1000 crore, and your cost of capital or your return or your expected rate of return is 10%. So what you do, 1000 crore divided by 0.10, and the value of this company becomes 10,000 crore. So this is how we would find out the value using the income capitalization method. The second method that we have under the income approach is discounted cash flow method. I'm sure all of us are quite aware about the discounted cash flow method. It is also known as DCF method. And what do we do in case of discounted cash flow method, and when do we use the discounted cash flow method? we would use the discounted cash flow method in a situation where the past income is not of so much significance than the future income. So if we are trying to do valuation of an entity where the past income is not so much important, what is more important is the future income. In that case, we will use the discounted cash flow method. And what do we do? As the name suggests, in case of discounted cash flow method, how do we do the valuation? We do the valuation by discounting the future cash flows and discounting the future cash flows by our cost of capital or return expected rate of return. Now, when we discount the future cash flows by our cost of capital, what we get the present value, and the present value of all the future years put together, that becomes the value of that business or of that entity, and that is your discounted cash flow method. One thing that I would like to mention here for the benefit of every one of you, whenever you are using discounted cash flow method, your cost of capital plays a very important role. And we all know cost of capital here would mean the weighted average cost of capital. Weighted average cost of capital would mean the average cost of all the sources of finance which are available in case of that company. One has to be very careful in calculating the discounted cash flow in calculating the cost of capital, because you have to be very careful in calculating the projected cash flow as well as the cost of capital, because if either of these two elements are wrong, then your complete valuation will also go for a toss, and that is what needs to be taken care of. Then we come to the second approach, and the second approach is the market approach. Now, in case of market approach, there are the three ways in which you can do. There are many ways, but primarily there are three ways. The first one is known as quoted price. Now, this quoted price is also known as level 1 input. I'm sure all of us are aware there is a Ind AS 113 which is also IFRS 13, and which is fair value measurement, which is indexed on the fair value measurement. Now, this Index 113 talks in terms of three level of inputs for the purpose of valuation. According to Index 113, of course, Index 113 also prescribes three methods, three approaches, as you have seen, as we have discussed: income approach, market approach, and the asset approach. Index 113, remember, does not mandate as to which approach should you use or which method should you use. It does not mandate. And why it does not mandate? Because valuation is something which is completely subjective, and there are no hard and fast rules that one has to follow. The approach and the method that one would apply will vary from situation to situation. But under the market approach, the first is quoted price. So according to Index 113, if you are doing valuation of an entity which is listed on the stock exchange, then the quoted price of that entity will be the fair value of that company. And very rightly so, because how is the quoted price is coming into existence? The quoted price is coming into existence based on the continuous flow of the buy order and the sale order, and therefore it is understood that the quoted price reflect the true and fair value of the entity, and that is your label input 1. Then you have comparable company method. Now, what is comparable company method or comparable transaction method? So it is not that every entity will be listed on a stock exchange, and therefore you would be able to use the quoted price as the basis for valuation of that company. There are companies which are not listed. Now, if a company is not listed, does it mean that this company cannot be valued? Answer, of course, is no. Company, even if it is not listed, it can still be valued. How do you do the valuation in a case like that? So according to Index 113, you can do the valuation using the comparable company method. Now, what does it mean? As the name suggests. So what you do, you try and find the company that you're trying to value, try and find out, is there any company of similar type which is quoted on the stock exchanges? So if you are able to find such a company which is listed on a stock exchange, pick up the quoted price of that company as the starting point for doing the valuation of a similar company, and that is what you can do for valuation of a company which is not listed on stock exchanges. Then you got a comparable transaction method. So what is the difference between the comparable company method and the comparable transaction method? Difference of course is very simple. In case of comparable company method, you're trying to do the value of a company. In case of a comparable transaction method, you're trying to do the value of a transaction. Say for example, you arrive in Dubai and you're trying to buy a new house for yourself. So when you try to find, when you are looking to purchase a new house for yourself in a particular locality, what will you do to ascertain as to what price you should be prepared to pay for a particular house? You will try and find out if this, what is the price at which a similar kind of house has been sold or bought in that locality. So that becomes your reference point for the purpose of doing the valuation or for deciding the price that you must pay to the seller of that house. And this is your comparable transaction method. Now here friends, I would like to tell you that as per Ind AS 113, the comparable company method is known as label 2 input. And let me explain this to you once again. So the Ind AS 113 has got three different label input. So one is label 1 input, which is the quoted price. And the second is label 2 input, which is the market information. Or in the technical terminology or in the terminology of Ind AS 113, it is known as observable input. Observable input would mean some information which is available in the market domain, which you can observe, and based on that you can do the valuation. So that's why it's known as label 2 input. And finally, what do you do in case you want to do the valuation of a company which is neither listed nor this company has got a company which is similar of its kind listed on the stock market? You still have to do the evaluation because there's a private limited company which is available for sale and you want to buy it. So how do you do the evaluation of this private limited company? Because label 1 input is not available, label 2 input is also not available. Now what do you do? Then Ind AS 113 talks about unobservable input. Unobservable, so that means information which is not available in the public domain, you try and create that information, and that is how you use the label 3 input, and that is your discounted cash flow method. So what you do in case of discounted cash flow method, you want to purchase a private limited company or unlisted company, so which is not quoted, which is not having a similar company. You want to do the valuation of this company. How will you do the valuation? Project the future cash flow of this company, find out the cost of capital, find out the present value. Total of the present value will become the value of this unlisted company or private limited company that you want to purchase. Now you have a third method, and the third method is your asset approach or the cost approach. Under the asset approach or the cost approach, you got 4 methods, primarily 4 methods. Number 1 is book value method. Now what does it mean? Very simple. So whatever the values are given in the balance sheet, you pick them as it is. So the values of the assets given in the balance sheet, pick them as it is, minus from this figure the value of the liabilities as given in the balance sheet, pick them as it is. So minus from the total of the assets all the liabilities that you have, and what you get in your bottom is the value of that company based on the book value method. And that is known as book value method because you are simply picking the book values as given in the books. The second method is adjusted book value method. Now, what is the adjusted book value method? No rocket science, very simple. In case of book value, what do? You pick up the value as they are given in the balance sheet. But in case of adjusted book value, what you do? You don't pick up the value as they are given in the balance sheet. You make certain adjustments. What adjustments? Let's say, for example, you bought a land for your company 20 years back. Let's say for 100,000 dirham, and today it is worth 1 million dirham. So when you want to do the valuation of this company using the adjusted book value, you will not take 100,000 dirham as the value of this land, what you will do, you will take 1 million dirham as the value of this land. Why? Because you know that the current value of this land is 1 million dirham. And so what you do, you are making adjustment in the book values, and that is why it is known as adjusted book value method. Number 3, you got a replacement method. Replacement as is what is. So replacement method would not mean that you replace a new asset, an old asset with the new one. No. So you have an old asset, try and find out the value of the that asset on as is where is basis, and that's your replacement method. And finally, what you have is the liquidation value method. Now, what is liquidation value method? So, liquidation value method, as the name suggests, is more applicable in case of companies which are going in for liquidation. So, the company is going in for liquidation, company is going to close down, and therefore what you need to do, you need to dispose of all the assets. So, liquidation value will mean what is the amount that you will get from the disposal of all the assets, minus all the liabilities that you have to discharge, minus the expenses that you have incurred in realizing those, or you are going to incur in realizing those, from the sale of those assets, and that becomes your liquidation value. Now, friends, these are the approaches and prime methods for the purpose of valuation. Remember, at this point in time, whether you are doing valuation of a company or whether you are doing valuation of intangible asset, remember the approaches will always remain same. Whether you are in India or you are in Europe or you are in Middle East or you are in any part of the world, the valuation approaches are always same. That is your income approach, market approach, and the asset approach. Under the income approach, the methods, the two prime methods are the ones that we have discussed. That is income capitalization and the discounted cash flow method. Then, of course, market approach, the number of methods can vary. And as a matter of fact, it is because of imaginative methods used under the market approach by a lot of companies, more so by the current lot of e-commerce companies, and that is the root cause that many times when these companies come out with IPOs at very high prices, those prices are not sustained in the stock markets and the prices go down, and that is because highly imaginative methods have been used. Now, one more thing that I would like to share with you, friends, here, and that is, please remember, when it comes to valuation, most fundamental, dependable, and reliable approach for valuation is income approach. If you happen to do any transaction of merger, acquisition, buyback, or a divestment, or you are acquiring another company, use the discounted cash flow method, and I can tell you, friends, a discounted cash flow method will never fail you. You only need to take two precautions. Number one, when you are projecting the future cash flows, make sure that they are as realistic as possible. And number two, when you are estimating your cost of capital, make sure that you are as realistic as possible. So that is as far as the income approach is concerned. As far as the market approach is concerned, quoted price is okay. Quoted price is okay to give you the current price, current value of that company. But I'm sure, friends, all of you in your experience would have seen that there are umpteen number of examples when a particular company was ruling on the stock market with a very huge price, and today that stock is falling into the category of penny stock. I can give you one example immediately that comes to my mind is of Suzlon. Suzlon, I'm sure all of you must have heard of that company. Suzlon was a power company, and once upon a time, this price of this share was 1200 rupees, and today it is not even 10 rupees. So market price is okay, but my suggestion will always be cross-check that market price with the discounted cash flow method. Remember, a decision that you are going to take based on the valuation that you would arrive are going to have long-term ramifications for the companies that you may advise to or for the companies that you may be working for. and therefore whatever value that we arrive at, it has to be on a very sound footing. So take the quoted price. In case if you're doing a transaction of a company which is listed on the stock markets, you take the the quoted price as the basis for the purpose of valuation, but at the same time ensure that you substantiate that stock price by the discounted cash flow value. And I'm sure, friends, all of you can very easily imagine most of the investors, most of the well informed or professional investors, when they do the investing in the stocks of companies all over the globe, they would always use the value, or they will always use the method of discounted cash flow to first find out as to what is the real value of that company, and then they will take a decision of buying or selling of that company. And that same precaution all of us can also take as regards to the market based approach. And as far as the cost approach is concerned, friends, as I said, cost approach gives you a value which is mostly applicable in case of liquidation cases. It gives you the downside value. So when we are using the cost approach for the purpose of valuation, it will give me a downside as to what is the minimum that I must expect in case if I am selling, or what is the minimum that I should be prepared to pay in case if I'm buying an asset. And that is your cost approach or the asset approach. One thing that I would like to mention here, friends, and that is all these approaches and methods only give us reference point and they do not give the price. So remember, whenever someone is doing valuation, what he is trying to do, he is only trying to find out a reference point. He is not trying to find out the price. Price will ultimately be decided between the buyer and the seller. What a valuation professional is giving, he is only giving a starting point. He is only giving a reference point. Whatever reference point a valuation professional may give, the actual transaction may happen at that price, may happen at a higher price than that, or may have at a lower price than that, depending on the buyer and the seller and their power of negotiation. The valuation professional is not giving a price, he is only giving you a reference point. As a valuation professional, and this is what I would very strongly recommend to every one of us to make a note, as valuation professional, arriving at the fair value by using whichever approach or method got to be our main driver, is got to be our main driver. And what we also need to remember, we need to remember that we do the valuation not for the sake of it. We do the valuation not because it has to be done. We do the valuation because valuation helps our companies, our clients, our employers in taking well-informed corporate decisions. And that is the reason as to why do we have to be very, very careful while doing the valuation. Now, friends, we come to the $1,000,000 question that we were talking about, and which is the title of our session today, as to valuation is not about numbers, is more about a story. Now, the question that comes to mind and I have come across this question, especially when I am addressing some Rotary meeting or Lions Club meeting or some other meeting, or when I am talking to people who are not from the finance background. And this is the question which is always asked by them. How is that some companies which are incurring losses, yet they are getting so huge valuations? Not only they are getting huge valuations on the stock markets, but they are also getting huge funding. So valuation on the stock market, one can understand because somebody can play on the stock market and manipulate the price. But how is that the fresh investor, fresh private equity fund or venture capital fund or professional investor, how is that they are prepared to invest millions and billions of dollars into loss-making company? And that is the question we need to answer and understand for good. So I'm sure, friends, all of us have heard of companies like Alibaba, Amazon, Flipkart, Make My Trip, Jeevansathi.com, Naukri.com, Big Basket, PayTM, Freshwork, Uber Eat, Policy Bazaar, First Cry, InMobi, Yatra.com, Swiggy, Pesa.com, Zomato. And list is not yet over. We have heard of companies like Grofers, Ola Cab, Delivery, Lenscard, Urban Ladder, Pepperfry, Byju's, Udan, Renew Power, BuildDesk, PineLab, Dreams, Rivigo, Ola Electric, Airbnb, Zerodha, Cashify. We have heard of names of companies: Redbus, Abex Cash, Spotify, MobiQuick, Misho, JustPay, No Broker, Cars24, Spinny, Car Trade, Cardeco, Slice, Zepto, Urban Clap. We have heard of all these names time and again. And more often than not, other than using some of these companies and taking their services, we have heard names of these companies in the context of valuation. Because in some newspaper or in some magazine or in some discussion, somebody would say that this company is making losses and this company is getting huge valuations on the stock markets. Not only this company is getting huge valuations on the stock market, but even the people are putting money into these companies at huge price. So most of these companies are today incurring losses. Interestingly, even though most of these companies are incurring losses, but many of these companies are already unicorn, and some of them are on their way to become decacorn. So now the question is, how is that? Is it that investors all over the globe have no understanding of business, and that is why they keep on investing without really knowing as to where they are putting their money? And let me tell you, friends, everyone, all the professional investors who invest their money into these companies, they do so for a very good reason. What that very good reason is, what that very good reason is, if we need to find out answer to that question, we will need to answer a couple of more questions. And what those questions are: number one, why these companies get such attractive valuation? अगर हमको इस सवाल का आंसर मालूम करना है, if we need to find out as to why these companies, despite the fact that they are making losses, how is that these companies are getting so huge valuations and they are getting so attractive funding, we will need to answer another question to find answer to this question. And that question is, why and when a company or someone should get good value. So the question is, why and when somebody will get good value. Is it that a lot of people that we see, look around, we see they are valued by everyone? How is that some of us or some people around us are being valued by everyone? They are being respected, they are being consulted, they are being approached for answers, for solutions. How is that? How is that? Is it happening on ad hoc basis? Is it happening randomly, or is it happening by a design? And I'm sure, friends, your immediate answer will be that it is happening by a design. It is happening by a reason. And what that reason is? That reason is all these people around us who are getting huge value, huge respect from everyone is not happening at random. It is happening by design, and that design is these people have the capability and ability with their responses, their approaches, to add value to everyone. So meaning what? Meaning people who create value, they get value. People who create value, they get value. Doesn't really matter as to what their personal income is, but they still get value. Same is the case with most of these companies that we are talking about. Despite the fact they are incurring losses, they are still getting huge value. And why they are getting huge value? Because all these companies, remember, are creating value. All these companies are creating value. So all these companies that we have just spoken about, they are all creating value. And the value that they are creating is their story. Value that these companies are creating is their story. And it is because of this story they are getting huge valuations. Let's find out as to what are the stories behind success of these companies that we have just spoken about. How is that these companies is getting so huge value? Let's look at them one by one. What is the story behind Alibaba, Amazon or Flipkart? Alibaba, Amazon or Flipkart, if you look at their P&L, if you look at their balance sheet, you would realize that these companies are still making losses. But they are getting huge value as far as stock markets are concerned. And why is that? That is because they have a story. What is the story? The story is what Alibaba or Amazon or Flipkart doing. They are creating value. How are they creating value? They are creating value by helping the buyers all over and the sellers all over. So today, as a seller, because of Alibaba, because of Amazon, because of Flipkart, the whole world has become my market. So if earlier I had a shop in one place, remember my market would be only the surrounding area of that shop. But today, because of Alibaba, because of Amazon, because of Flipkart, the whole world has become my market. And same is the case as far as the buyer is concerned. So as a buyer, yesterday what I could do, if I needed to buy something, I could go to one place and pick up something from a limited choice that the salesperson on that shop could show to me. But today, because of Flipkart, because of Alibaba, because of Amazon, what do I have? I have got so many options and the choices available, and so much of information is available about all the products which are available, their features, their reviews, and so many things. That is the value Amazon is creating. That is the value Flipkart is creating. That is the value Alibaba is creating. And this value that they are creating for the sellers and for the buyers, remember, is getting reflected in the value of these companies. And that is the reason why these companies are getting so huge valuations, despite the fact that they still incur losses. What is the story of IRCTC or Make My Trip or Yatra.com? I'm sure all of you would remember IRCTC came out with a public issue, I think about 4 or 5 years back. And I would remember the issue price was something like about 325 rupees or something. About a year back, this 325, which was the issue price of IRCTC at the time of the IPO, it reached over 5,000 about a year back. And after that, the company went in for a split, and there was some controversy, and thereafter the price has come down. After the split, of course, the price has reduced proportionately, but the price has still come down because of some controversy that was there in case of the IRCTC. Question that we need to understand: what is the story of IRCTC for it to get a value from rupees 325 IPO price to over 5,000 in a period of 4 or 5 years? Story, friends, of course, is very simple. And that is what we need to understand. And once we understand, and if we apply this, remember, we also start getting same kind of valuations. What is the story? The story is, before IRCTC, if you and I had to book a ticket in India, what you and I needed to do? You and I needed to come out of our house, start our car, take the car to the railway station, park the car in the parking, go to the ticket window, stand in the queue. Fortunate if we are, when our turn comes, the clerk would not say, it's lunch time, please come after 1 hour. If we are lucky, we will get him. And if we start asking him that I have to go to this place, can you please tell me what is the price and how much time will it take? I'm sure the clerk sitting on the other side of the window would frown at you and tell you, you want to buy a ticket? Take the ticket. Please don't waste my time, because there are 100 people standing behind you. And if you are not lucky, then he would say, all the tickets are gone. Sorry. And what do? You come back home. Imagine how much time have you spent? How much money have you spent? And how much disappointed you have faced in the whole process. But with the advent of IRCTC, what happened? With the advent of IRCTC, you do not have to go to the railway station. Just open your laptop, and by opening your laptop, going to the IRCTC portal, you can find out as to what all options are available to you for reaching to your destination. You will come to know how many seats are available, how many seats are not available, which class is available, which class is not available, can you go for some other train, how much fare do you have to pay, how much time will it take, what time will it stop at a particular station. All the informations are available, and you are able to book the ticket in just a span of 3, 4, 5 minutes without spending any money whatsoever. Now remember, it is not that simple. It is not that simple. It is much more. So millions of tickets are being booked every day on the IRCTC portal. Millions of people are saving their time and money which they were spending earlier. Now, this is the value IRCTC is creating, and that is the reason as to why the issue price of 325 crossed the price of 5,000 rupees. Same is the case with Make My Trip, or same is the case with Yatra.com as well. What is the story of Jeevan Sathi, Policy Bazaar, or Naukri.com? What these companies are doing? Jeevansathi.com. Let's take the story of Jeevansathi.com. India being so huge a country, 140 140 crore की population है. There are so many castes and all those things. So if a person had to find a bride or a groom for his son or daughter, what he would need to do? He would have very limited options. What he would need to do, he would need to sound it to all his relatives who were close to him and tell them कि भाई मेरी बेटी की शादी करनी है, I am looking for a boy, या मेरे बेटे की शादी करनी है, I am looking for a suitable girl. And these relatives with their limited contacts will try and find out and try and do the matchmaking. And you can imagine, I am sure all of us have gone through that stage at one time or the other. So we can imagine as to what kind of complexities and what kind of difficulties and hardships and challenges were involved in the process. What Jeevan Sathi is doing? Jeevan Sathi has simplified the whole process. Now you just need to register on Jeevan Sathi, and you will have all the options available that you may be looking for. And same is the case when you upload your profile, you are accessible to all the people. And remember, the whole entire process has become so easy and so simple. And that is the story of Jeevan Sathi, which is equally applicable to Policy Bazaar, because earlier if you and I had to take an insurance policy, the kind of efforts that you and I would make, you can imagine, is going to be humongous. And at the same time, we will never get complete information, and we will end up doing the insurance without really knowing as to what risks are covered and how much premium that we are paying, whether it is reasonable or not reasonable. Today with the Policy Bazaar, you have all those informations and everything is available. And same is the case with the Naukri.com as well. So these are the stories for these companies. What is the story of Reliance Fresh, Big Basket, Zomato, Groffer, Swiggy, Uber Eats, Delivery, and Zepto? So very simple, and I'm sure the same logic flows here also. So today, earlier, if I need to buy grocery, I would go to the grocery shop. And if I'm short of time, you can imagine how much time and efforts I would need to spend in buying the grocery. Today, with Big Basket or Reliance Fresh or any of these companies, what do I need to do? I just need to book my order on the portal of these people, and I will get my delivery sitting at home. What I am saving time. And remember, I am saving time, but I am getting the benefit of the price as well. And why I am getting the price as well? Because all these portals, all these organizations, Reliance Fresh and Big Basket, now they do the procurement on mega scale. And as a result of that, they are able to negotiate better price, and they are able to not only negotiate better price, but their administrative expenses being under one umbrella are also much lesser. And as a result of that, they are able to also pass the benefit of lower price. And that is the story behind Reliance Fresh, Big Basket, Zomato, Groffer, Swiggy, Uber Eats, and so many of them that these companies are getting so huge. valuation. What is the story of Urban Clap? Now you can imagine. So, Urban Clap. Why should a company like Urban Clap? What are they into? They are into giving domestic services. So somebody has to get a hair massage, head massage. Somebody has to get haircut. Somebody has to, whatever service that they would need. Somebody has to have some water leakage fixed or electrification done. So what you do, you simply upload your order on Urban Clap. Those people will come and do the job and go. What is the benefit the end user is getting? The end user is getting is the convenience, and convenience of one person multiplied with millions of people all over the country and quantified in terms of value. That is the value what Urban Clap is getting today because of their product. What is the story of Oyo and Airbnb? Lakhs and lakhs of housing units, dwelling units lying vacant, earning nothing for the owners. What Oyo has done or what Airbnb has done. Airbnb has made things profitable for both the owners of the dwelling units and also the user of the dwelling units. So the owner of the dwelling unit, by registering at the Airbnb, is able to get certain people coming and using his property and paying him something in return. That was not happening earlier. At the same time, because of Airbnb, the user of those dwelling units, they get affordable accommodation whenever they are traveling to different locations, and that value which is being created on account of this by Airbnb is reflecting in the value of Airbnb and also in case of Oyo. What is the story of Quicker, OLX and Car Dekho? So yesterday, if you and I had to sell the car, what we would do? I would speak to my friends, 3-4 of them, and I would tell them that I want to sell my car. And you can imagine how much would be their reach. Their reach would be limited. And besides their reach, their interest also may be limited. So it would really be very difficult for someone to sell his second-hand car. And today what you have, today you want to sell your car, you just need to register on the OLX, and you can be rest assured that your car is sold within a maximum period of 7 days and you get a price of your choice. They are so prompt and they are so fast, and that is because they are using technology, and of course they are using their organizational capability. They are able to bring a large mass of sellers of the second-hand vehicles and bring the large mass of buyers of such second-hand vehicles at one place. As a result of that, they are able to pass on, they are able to minimize the cost because they are able to make the system more efficient, and because of improvement in the efficiency, they are able to lower the cost and offer a better price to the buyer as well as a better price to the seller. And that is the story of Quicker or OLX or Car Dekho, and that's the reason why they are getting so good valuation. What is the story of Book My Ticket or Book My Ticket or Book My Show? Very simple. So in the past, if I needed to go to watch a movie, I would go to theater, and by the time I reach and I go to the ticket window, I come to know it's house full. And what do? Having traveled half an hour, 45 minutes from my residence to the theater, and spent on petrol and my time, and I go back frustrated and disappointed. Against that, what do I have? I do not have to travel to a theater. I just need to go to Book My Show or Book My Ticket. Book my ticket in advance, and please remember, I have all the choices available in front of me. Which theater can I go to? Which movie can I watch? What time show is available? How many seats are available? How many front row seats are available? How much balcony seats are available? All that information is available to me. So now when I want to see a movie, I do not come back disappointed from the theater. And remember, this saving of time and money is getting reflected in the valuation of Book My Show and Book My Ticket. That is the story of Book My Show and Book My Ticket. And what is the story of DMart? I'm sure, friends, all of you Again, a very interesting story. DMart. Interestingly, DMart also came out with a public issue about four years back, and interestingly, their issue price was also something like 300 rupees. The issue price, of course, opened very well. I think it was almost opened 100% premium. So the 300 rupees issue price got listed something about 600 rupees, and ever since, DMart price has never gone back. Of course, in the recent past, it's a different story, but otherwise, how is that? And at one point in time, DMart was getting a valuation of 6,000 rupees on the stock markets. How is that 300 rupee share becomes 6,000 rupees just in a span of 4 or 5 years? And that is because there is a story behind DMart. And what is the story behind DMart? Bharat Damani, the promoter of this company, he has set up all these units all over the country, and again they are able to negotiate better price, and they are able to negotiate better price, and they are able to pass part of this price to the consumer. And therefore you would notice, and I'm sure some of you, I don't know about, I'm sure some of you would have experienced it, that the prices at which you get the goods in DMart generally are cheaper than the price at which you will buy them in rest of the market. And that is the story, and that is the reason as to why DMart is getting so huge valuation. So friends, this is the reason as to why do we say that valuation is not about numbers. Valuation is all about story. What is the story? What is the common thread in all these companies that we are talking about? The common thread, friends, and that is what you and I need to notice. What is the common thread? What these companies are doing? All these companies are into different services altogether. Alibaba, Amazon, Flipkart is a marketing platform. IRCTC, Make My Trip, they are offering you travel ticket booking services. Jeevan Sati is helping you getting matchmaking. These are the services which are offered by these companies. But the question is, what is the common thread in all these companies? And friends, the common thread is all these companies, what they are doing, they are making the system more efficient. What they are doing, they are making life of the end user more easy and more convenient. And it is that common thread making the system efficient by making use of the technology, bringing convenience in the life of the people. This is the value creation all these companies are doing, and that is the story of all these companies, and that is the reason as to why these companies are getting so huge valuations, despite the fact most of them today are incurring losses. But please remember, they may be incurring losses today, but it does not mean they will continue to make losses forever. I am sure after certain time, these companies will definitely start earning profits, provided they are able to sustain, because today the losses of these companies are being funded by some investor or the other. So long as these companies keep on doing well the other way they are doing, so long as these companies keep on getting the new investors, till the time they start making profit, sustainability is not going to be an issue with all these companies. But in case if they run short of an investor and they stop adding value, then they would be in trouble. So now the question is, will these companies be able to sustain it in long term? And the answer is we need to look at as to what is the value creation chain of all these e-commerce entities that we are talking about. So what all these e-commerce entities are doing, they are creating value. How are they creating value? They are creating value for the investor, they are creating value for the company, they are creating value for the market participants, and they're also creating value for the consumer. So long as these companies, all these companies that we are discussing, continue to create value for all these stakeholders, these companies will continue to survive, continue to grow, and one day they would of course start making profit as well. Because please pay attention, because the cost that they are incurring today, if you really ask me, the cost that they are incurring is more in the nature of capex. The cost they are incurring today in building, in getting established themselves, is is an intangible capex. It's an intangible capex. It is because of the accounting system that we have that all these expenses need to be recorded as a revenue expense. Now, really speaking, these are not revenue expenses. What they're incurring, intangible expenses, intangible expenditure, which really speaking should be capitalized. Once these companies get duly entrenched and established, these expenses that they are incurring will go down, plus the revenues that they are earning will keep on multiplying. So soon a stage will come when these companies' revenues will be more and the expenses will be less, and these companies will start making profit. And when these companies start making profit, and that is the time these companies will start getting more value. So long as this cycle of value creation, and that is the story, is sustained, valuation will not be an issue for these companies. That is what I would think as far as all these companies are concerned. Now let's come to the second aspect of our discussion that we started with. Why do we have IPO debacles like that of Reliance Power? I'm sure Reliance Power, of course, is an old story. About 10 years back, when the Reliance Power came out with a public issue, again it was a highly hyped public issue, and unfortunately soon after the listing of the Reliance Power on the stock exchanges, the price crashed by 50%, as much as the company had to pacify the investor and give a bonus issue out of the premium that the company had gained. That was the situation. And of course, unfortunately, Reliance Power has been in trouble ever since then. And today, of course, the company is listed at about 12 rupees or so. So how is the debacle of Reliance Power or LIC or PayTM or Zomato? How do they happen? And can this be stopped? Can this be stopped? That is the question. And that is what we need to understand and answer. Now, friends, if we have to answer this question, if we have to understand as to why does it happen, क्यों ऐसा होता है, a company like LIC comes out with an IPO and the issue is tanked by 20%, 25%. PSU, very strong PSU. How does it happen? How is that a company like PayTM comes out with a public issue at an issue price of 2,150, and today the stock is ruling at 700, so almost down by 2/3. How does it happen? If we have to understand answer to this question and also find solution to this problem, what we need to understand one thing very clearly, and that is purpose of an exercise of valuation should not be to just find a value, rather it should be to find fair value. So as a company, as promoter, as merchant banker, as valuation professional, it is combined responsibility of every one of us that when we do the evaluation of the company for which we are trying to come out with IPO, we ensure that the issue price is fair. Unfortunately, what happens? Tendency on the part of some companies and some promoters is to fleece the market, take the advantage of the market situation, and that is what drives them in fixing the valuation of a business or of a company. And that is the case in case of PayTM, that is the case in case of LIC, that is the case in case of Zomato and so many other companies. Zomato got a very good response on the stock market, and therefore PayTM thought to copy that. Zomato's 1 rupee share was issued at 76 rupees and it got listed at something like 140 rupees. Today, of course, it is less than 60 rupees. That's a different story. So what PayTM thought? Market is ripe. Everybody is enthusiastic about the capital market. Everybody wants to invest. So let us price the issue highly optimistically, and so as to get the money from the market. And that is what drives. And in such cases, what happens? In such cases, there's a pressure from the side of the promoter on the valuation professional. So they don't let the valuation professional do the valuation. The merchant banker, the angel investor, the promoter, the original promoters of the company, the private equity investors of the company, all of them put together will put a pressure on the valuation professional and ask him to give a valuation which they think is the right valuation of theirs. And that is where things go wrong. And that is where a valuation professional also has to stand his ground. Also has to stand his ground. Is when the valuation professional crumbles, then a mishap like PayTM would happen or a mishap like LIC would happen. So we need to remember, the valuation professional has to remember, the promoters of the company has to remember, private equity people have to remember that we have to come with a fair value. We have to come with a fair value. Just imagine the plight of those retail investors who must have bought these shares of PayTM at 2150, and today it is ruling at about 700 rupees. So what a huge loss for them. And angel investor or the private equity investor, for them it won't make any difference because they have made their profit already. But it is the retail investor who is getting hit. And so that is what I would like to repeat once again. The responsibility of everyone in doing the valuation is to find a fair value and not to fix a value which is going to be to their advantage. Now, why does it happen? Why does it happen? How is that valuation go wrong so terribly, as in case of LIC, as in case of Zomato, or as in case of PayTM? That is because, friends, as we discussed in the beginning, the basis for valuation in many of these companies is not based on the discounted cash flow. It is not based on the income capitalization method in any case, because all these companies do not have past income, so that income capitalization method cannot be applied. But discounted cash flow method can definitely be used, but they don't use it. Instead of what they do, they use the market approach. Under the market approach, how would they do the valuation of these companies? So they will do the valuation of these companies based on factors like monthly unique visitors. How many people are coming and visiting my site? Based on the valuation will be done, not on the cash flow. Valuation will be done based on how many people are coming to my portal. Customer conversion rate, bounce rate, how many customers are coming back, average order value, monthly active users. Now these are highly imaginative methods that are used for the purpose of doing the valuation, which has got no linkage as far as the cash flow is concerned. And therefore, since the cash flow is not taken into account, some imaginative methods are taken into account for the purpose of valuation. You arrive at a value that you want to arrive at using these methods. And then what happens? Then there's a debacle, then there's a fiasco, as we have seen in the cases of the ones that I have just spoken about. So, can this be stopped? And the answer is, unless these metrics, monthly unique visitor or customer conversion rate or any of these methods, unless these metrics are linked with cash flow generation and focus is on finding fair value, IPO debacle like these will keep on happening in future as well. That's number one. Number two, it is high time that the government should also become alert in all such cases. One can understand if the IPO price, if IPO is getting listed at less than 10% or thereabout, one can understand. But if a issue is getting listed at a price lower than 50%, 30%, 40%, that means definitely something has gone wrong in the valuation done by those companies. And therefore, some accountability needs to be fixed in such cases. So the merchant bankers must be questioned. The valuers must be questioned. The promoters must be questioned as to how did you arrive at the value when the whole market is discounting your IPO price so hugely. that fixation of accountability has to happen. I'm sure this factor must be taken into account by the government, and they would certainly come out with certain kind of rules and guidelines so as to ensure that the valuation professional or the merchant bankers are very and vigilant while fixing the issue price. And it can be stopped provided we are able to have this change. So, friends, with this, I come to the close of my session, and I can now, of course, leave it open to all of you for any question and answers that you may have.